I'll get to the warm-up in just a second. I do want to cover kind of a few quick things. Um, Remember that, and in just a few minutes, I'm going to ask you if you are retesting. Remember, the retest next week for Unit 1 cover either the first assessment or the second assessment. Either the first or the second assessment. I need you to tell me today whether you're going to do it Tuesday afternoon or Thursday afternoon, whether you're going to retest Tuesday afternoon or Thursday afternoon. I do need a commitment today because we're trying to accommodate a great number of kids, and I need to make sure we have enough desks in the classrooms. Also remember that your test corrections from the first test are due Tuesday. Some of you have already turned them in. I've got those. But if you have not done those are due Tuesday. Make sure you're following the guidelines. It doesn't say just erase the problem and rework it. Read the cover sheet and do what it says to do. Okay? Any questions on those two things? All right. When you walked in, you should have picked up one of these. Okay? These forms. It's basically a letter to you and your parents with regard to the test. And I want to really be clear about something, guys, because it's an important thing. What I basically did is I went through the test, question by question, all 20 questions. There were 20 questions on the test. And I didn't even look at classwork and homework. I didn't even look at classwork and homework. I only looked at extension and review, which were the 2 days immediately prior to the test, immediately preceding the test. And I found exact same questions from the review for each question. So if you look at the thing, it says test question number 1. If you want to see an example of test question number 1, you just go to review number 19. Test question number 2, review number 19. Test question 3, extension day number 23. Question number 4, review number 1, and so on. Which means this. If you did not do as well as you had hoped on that second test, it's almost a guarantee that you didn't study the review and the extension. Genuinely study the review and the extension because the questions were exactly the same. The only thing that was different were the numbers. Okay? It'll be like that for the rest of the year. Meaning, if you choose not to study, you will typically fail. And if it didn't catch you this time, I assure you in Unit 4 it will. In a high school honors class, you must prepare yourself. You must get yourself ready for a test. Gone are the days where you simply walk in unprepared and nail it. It's generally not going to happen anymore. You've got to get yourself ready. My daughter has 4 tests today in high school. She's a freshman, right? She's one of y'all. She took algebra 7th grader, geometry as an 8th grader. She has a test in AP Human Geography. She has a test in AP Biology. She has a test in American Sign Language. And she has a test in her AP Humanities class, which is her language arts. She has 3 AP tests in one day. I think she went to bed last night at around 1:30. I think she was done studying then. She studied from the time she got home from the theater at 6 o'clock until about 1:30. Because that's what was necessary. Okay? Get yourselves ready. You've got to get yourselves ready to study. Okay? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to write whatever you made on the Unit 1, this second test, in this box at the lower left-hand corner. Whatever you made on that test, the one we passed out yesterday, handed out to you yesterday, write your number there. Okay? I want a parent signature on these forms, and I want them brought back to me on Monday. And your parents will know because it'll be in my email. So you might as well just make sure you keep it. Okay? So put whatever your test grade was in that lower left-hand corner, and then next one says parent signature. I just want a parent signature so the parents understand that really all you have to do to get ready for the test is do the review and the extension, which were 2 days prior. Some of us did, some of us didn't. Okay? Any questions on that? Groovy. How was yesterday on like what we do yesterday? Pretty good stuff? Yeah. Function, not a function. So create a mapping diagram. We talked about the rules for making a mapping diagram. So let me make the mapping diagram for number 1. Now, as soon as I set up my little circles, what do I know each oval, it's not a circle, I guess, oval, what does each oval represent, Joey?
One is X and one is
Which one is X?
the left.
The left one is always your input, the right one is always your output. X and Y, right? And then when we put the numbers in there, what do we have to remember when we put the numbers in there? Very good. So you went to put them in order. So let's see, what's the lowest value x is -1, then 1, then 2, and then 4. And on the y side, we have -1, and then 1, and then 2.
Oh, yeah, 2, sorry.
And I think we're done. I think that's it. So now we start connecting. -1 to 2, 1 to 1, 1 to -1. What do I instantly know right now? Not a function. Very good. Because that 2 lines come from the same, but I still keep going. There and there.
It's like a kind of Z pattern.
I knew it, like a zigzag. Same thing over here. My O vowels. -6, -4, 4, and 7. You notice I'm not repeating the numbers. Muy important. -3, -1, and 1. Let's connect. -6 to -1, -4 to +1, 4 to -3, and 7 to -1. What do we instantly know about this? It is a function because this is okie dokie. That is okay. Yes. This is bad. Okay? Function, not a function. Make sure you can test that. Any questions on this? Cool. Let's get into what we're doing today. Today's a cool day because we have no homework.
Yay!
Yay.
And it's Friday.
It is. I know. I'm about to use words. There we go. There's words on the board.
Oh my.
The American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language defines function as something closely related to another thing and dependent upon it for its existence, value, or significance. It is.
What?
A function is basically something that depends on something else for its very existence. A function is something that depends on something else for its very existence. Carter, do you have a question? Kind of like a dependent variable in a science experiment. If you think of our analogy yesterday, remember we were talking about you cannot repeat which values for a function? X, very good. You cannot repeat the X values. So, did I give you all the whole soda machine analogy? Okay, watch. If I go to a soda machine and I hit a Dr. Pepper button, what is my expectation? That Dr. Pepper comes out. My input is hitting the button. The output had better be Dr. Pepper. What cannot happen is what I shouldn't be able to do is provide one input, hitting my Dr. Pepper button, and getting more than one output. No, it's not. When you get a Sprite, when you hit a Dr. Pepper button, you get a Sprite.
Oh, I thought you meant you got like 2.
No. I mean, like, you get something other than the Dr. Pepper that you want. No, it's good if you get 2 Dr. Peppers.
Yeah, no, that's what I
But if you get a Dr. Pepper, if you get a Sprite when you hit a Dr. Pepper button, that's not good. Would that stink if every time you went to a soda machine, you pressed the button, you didn't know what was coming out?
That'd be fun.
So for a function to exist, that one input has to produce one and only one output. Okay? It has to produce one and only one output. A better way to put it is that the Dr. Pepper falling out of the machine is dependent upon what happens. Me pressing the button. The Dr. Pepper coming out of the machine is dependent upon me pressing that button. Okay? Make sense so far? So let's talk about the way the functional relationships work. The way you have to think about it, and I'm not going to show you, but here's kind of the way you ask yourself. What is dependent on the other? What is a function of the other thing happening? Which one depends on the other thing? So watch, here we go. How fast I wake up in the morning is a function of how much sleep I get. That is generally true for teenagers. How fast you get up in the morning is dependent on or is a function of how much sleep I get. Is how much sleep I get a function of how fast I wake up in the morning? No, it doesn't even make sense. When you say it that way, it doesn't really even make sense. Our height is a function of what thing? Genetics. Absolutely. Now, there are obviously examples of not, but generally speaking, if you've got a dad that's 6'9" and a mom that's 6'4", reference the Fraser family, you end up with those, incredibly large children. Okay? Well, No, Zach's the biggest. Zach's a monster.
Zach can barely fit through the.
Yeah, Zach's like, I think Zach's up to like 6'5", 340. I mean, he literally, yeah, Colin will tell you, when he walks into a doorway,
He has like.
it fills. I mean, it just.
It has like
He
that
blocks
much
the.
room between.
He blocks the sun.
Sooner,
Yeah.
sooner he's just gonna be. He's gonna be walking in and he's just gonna like.
He came over to my house one day for tutoring, and my wife was walking out, and she goes, "Good Lord, how large is that child?" I was like, "He's pretty large." Like, we gotta see his parents. Yes, ma'am.
My friend who's 13 is 6'3".
Yeah, I mean, it happens. You got Dylan's pretty big, Brandon's pretty big, but Zach's a massive, massive, massive boy. And it's not like he's just tall and skinny. He's just like someone, you know, put a little, like these other little thing in his back, and you put the air in, and just pump him up, and he just swells up like a Macy's Day balloon. So our height is generally a function of genetics. Our height is a function of genetics. What would be a function of how much I study? Very good, great. Now, when you're thinking of this, you have to think about what determines the other. You kind of have to think about what determines the other. Because sometimes I'm going to give you a scenario that you really have to step back and think about. The way I need you to think about it is, what is determining the other thing? Okay? What is determining the other thing? I'll give you about 30 seconds. Come up with 2 examples in your group. As to two, blank is a function of blank. Blank is a function of blank. All right, so here we go. Let's see. In the back, Ethan Blandy, what y'all come up with?
Your speed is a function of how fit you are.
Your speed, okay, so running. Your speed is a function of how fit you are. I would say that's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. Madison, what y'all come up with in this group?
How good you are is a function of how much you practice.
Okay, so like for like a musician or ballet or whatever it is, how good you are is a function of how much you practice. I would agree with that. Joe in the front. Y'all came up with nothing?
No, we didn't.
Give me one. They struck down your ideas? Poor Carden. Carden, what did you come up with? Before you were bullied. Here's one. This is what I thought of. I was walking, I just started laughing, and Amy looked at me funny, but sometimes I think of funny ones. How much gas you have is a function of how many beans you eat.
Beans. Okay, can I say the one that I came up with? The fatness of how big you are is a function of how much you eat.
That's an extraordinary way of saying that. The fatness of how big you are.
He didn't use husky.
Let's use something nicer. Your circumference. Math. Your circumference is a function of how many trips you make to the Phi Emporium.
I like the fatness.
Oh, I love the Phi Emporium so very
I
much.
like the fatness.
I like the fatness of your, what did you say?
I like the fatness sentence better.
That's funny. Okay. So this is a really important thing because you're going to see this on standardized tests. Any set of ordered pairs, which is an x and a y, which is an input and an output, is called a relation in x and y. A relation, Ethan, move it to the side so you're not tempted, thank you, is called a relation in x and y. And given that relation in x and y, and by the way, a relation just means there's a connection, right? We say y is a function of x. That y is a function of x. If I say, guys, for the following situation, is y a function of x, what do you think I'm simply asking you? Yes, ma'am?
Is y a function of x?
Yes, but what's more, even more simply, what do you think I'm asking you? Think yesterday. Yes. Is it a function? If I say in the following scenario, for which of the following scenarios is y a function of x, it's a very fancy math way of saying which of the following is a function.
But I thought that was something. But I thought
Okay.
calling something fat was.
Well, let's say what, come on, you're like 5 minutes late. Did you hear what I said about y is function of x? Very important. Okay? So when I ask, for which of the following is y a function of x, I'm basically asking, is it a function? Is it a function? Okay? And which one is always a function of the other? Which variable is always a function of the other? Y is always a function of x. It must be. It must be. And if you think about it, that makes sense because your output is a function of your input. Which one comes first? The input. Very good, Colin. The input comes first. The input happens, and then the output happens. So the output is a function of that input. So looking at example 1, what is a function of the other? Avery?
The temperature is a function of...
The temperature of the coffee, the temperature of the coffee, which is your y, because you look to the y-axis to find it, is a function of the time. Now, is that a true statement? It is, because what happens as the time continues on? What's happening to the temperature? It's going down. Yeah, if you get hot coffee and you set it out, as the time goes on, what is that coffee doing? The temperature is going down. As the time increases, the temperature is decreasing. Y is a function of x. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right, so here we go. Determine whether each of the ordered pairs below represents a functional relationship. Now, I need you to understand how to test for a functional relationship. There's only one thing you have to do. Number one, we learned yesterday, what can we do when we get the ordered pairs and the graphs and stuff? What are we looking for to determine if it's a function? We look to see if the x repeats itself. We do the vertical line test, and we look for repeats of the x. But in words, we have to do something different. In words, we basically have to ask ourselves, is whatever the y is a function of whatever the x is? Is y a function of x? So I want you to think to yourself, do not yell it out, but I want you to think to yourself, if A would represent a functional relationship based off that statement you have to make to yourself. Okay, let's do the function statement first. By the way, a function statement is where you literally plug it in. Tristan?
The amount of money I earn is a function of how many hours I work.
Perfect. The amount of money I earn is a function of the amount of hours I work. Is that a true statement? It is. When you grow up and get a job and you're paid by the hour, the amount of money you make is absolutely a function of how many hours you work. That is a functional relationship. Now try B. Don't yell it, just read it. First, give me the function statement, please. Andrew, you want to try the function statement on that one? No, on B? Just give me the function statement where we plug in the y, we plug in the x, and the blank is a function of blank.
Shoe size is a function of...
Nope, hold. Which ones are x and which ones are y? X is always first in an ordered pair. Y is always second in our ordered pair. Madison, give me the function statement based off of what we see.
The length of your hair is not a function of your shoe size.
No, I want it as a function statement. You don't have to tell me if it's true or not. I just want you to give me the function statement. You know what I mean when I say that? But guys, a function statement is where you say y is a function of x. You have to do the function statement first, then you determine if it's true or not. Carden?
Length of hair is a function of the shoe size.
That's your function statement. Length of hair is a function of your shoe size. Now, yes or no? No, it is not. Therefore, that is not a function. But what I need you to understand is just like yesterday, your test yesterday was, do the x's repeat? Do two lines come from the same x in a mapping diagram? Does it pass the vertical line test? Those are your tests when you get numbers. But when you get words, your test is the function statement. Is y a function of x? Joseph?
Can you say shoe size?
Shoe size. No, because I'll say something very bad and I'm being recorded. So, here we go, let's finish up. I'm going to call your name here in a few minutes. I'm going to go table by table, and I want to find out if you are going to do the Unit 1 retest. If you are, I need you to commit to Tuesday or Thursday. Remember that your test corrections are indeed due Tuesday. If you need another one of those sheets, you need to fill out a green slip and request one. And finally, you may now start your classwork. That's all you have today, and then you are done. Check it against the key, and you are then done today.